Hejsa. I have been working on another quilt, and this one I'm going to send to the Festival of Quilts this year. But I made a mistake in the quilt, or in the quilt top. The quilt is not finished yet, but I wanted to make sure that I finished the quilt top so at least I could take some pictures when I submitted the quilt to the festival. I didn't have a lot of time between when I decided I was going to send in a quilt and when the deadline was. I think I had a week and a half, but I don't know if you remember or if you've seen a video where I talked about making these blocks, that this was going to be a sort of in the background project where I would just, whenever I felt like sewing something together but I didn't have an active project, I could make some of these blocks from my scraps. So I needed an idea where I didn't have to make a lot of blocks for the quilts because I wouldn't have time for it. But luckily I actually had about 250 of these. And I think I did make a few extra just to balance out the colors. And then I also had some wonky log cabin blocks that I had been making over leftovers from other projects. So these ones are also left over because again I needed to make some extra to sort of fill in some color gaps, but I didn't have to make that many. And then just before I started or decided that I was going to submit a quilt, I had been sort of experimenting with these sort of blocks. I'm not entirely sure what they're called. Are they sort of braided blocks? I don't know. So I had some of these made already. I just needed to trim them to the right size. And then I also ended up having to make a few more in a different color, which actually is a very nice tie-in with what I'm doing here, because, and I'll put up a little video I took of it on our washing line. In this corner here, at the bottom of the central panel, the orange and the blue blocks are actually in the wrong place. They need to be swapped. Here, so that the blue is over here next to another orange, and then the orange is next to the blue. But of course, because I hadn't spotted this before I sewed everything together, and now everything is around it is laid out color-wise so that it goes with this layout. So I'm still sort of debating how much of this I need to unpick. I think that I have decided that I can get away with just unpicking these 6 and then move this one over here and these 2 over there, and then I think it will work out okay and still be, because I don't want to have a sort of weird corner where it's just all blue or all red or all orange or something like that. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm unpicking this section because I'm not entirely sure when the deadline for posting the quilt is, but I don't want to be doing the quilting and sending it at the last minute. So I really should get this sorted out so that I can quilt it soon. although I'm not sure that it will be in the next week or so, because it's supposed to be quite hot here. And where I usually sit to do the quilting in our house is quite a warm spot. It's not in our conservatory, but it's right next to it, so it does get a lot of heat radiation. I did briefly think that, oh, I would just leave this and not worry about this error. But every time I look at the quilt top or look at the pictures I took of it, it just annoys me. So I have to take it apart and redo it. And I also need to decide how to quilt it. I think maybe a grid would be nice. Or maybe a diagonal grid, because the corner blocks are set on a diagonal compared to the rest of the quilt. I just thought that that would be just a nice way to break up the quilt and show that it has different sections or different blocks. And apart from this little error that is relatively easy to fix, I'm actually really pleased with this quilt top. It feels like it came together almost without me having to do much, although I know that I did. So I did spend quite a few hours over the course of a week sewing this together. And it was also quite a big job to lay out the different blocks, especially the small ones, because there are so many of them. I'm glad that I didn't go with my first idea for the layout, where I was going to split the different blocks into not color families, but temperature values or temperature families, whatever you want to call it. So let's say I had this one, and then the next one out would be a cool color, maybe like the aqua turquoise color, and then after that it would be another warm color. And I think that would have just been too much to keep track of. And I really like how this has turned out, because it's just so bright and cheerful. I did have some of the, I don't know if they're in this stack, but I did have some black and grey of these small blocks, but in the end I decided I was going to use those because they would sort of stand out in a weird way in the quilt. So yeah, I wasn't going to make another quilt this year. The only quilt I was going to, or two quilts that I was supposed to make this year, is the quilt that I'm working on for a friend, and then I have my Groundhog Day quilt, which I need to redo because the squares are the wrong size. But that was supposed to be it for the quilting. But then of course I had to make this quilt. I had to give myself another job. So I'm not entering this in a judged category because I didn't have enough time to make it as well made as it would need to be for a judged category. So it's just going in the, I can't remember what it's called, joy of sharing or something, which is fine. I mean, that is the most important thing about quilting, isn't it? That we share it and we inspire each other to make quilts. I can't figure out how this is sewn together. Not sure how to separate it. So I wasn't actually planning on going to the Festival of Quilts this year, but then I started seeing posts about people going, and I thought, oh, I would really like to go. And then I realized I could take a coach trip there, because there's actually one that has a stop that's about 10-minute walk from our house. So I thought, well, that will work. Bearing in mind that it's about a 2 to 3 hour coach trip to get there and then the same to get back. And I guess my husband thought that I was very silly. So he suggested that he would come along and we would drive there, and he would go and do something else while I go look at quilts. That was quite nice of him. So we're going on an outing to the NEC together. I'm actually quite looking forward to it. When he first suggested that he would come along, I think I looked at him quite incredulously and said, "You want to come and look at quilts?" Turns out he didn't. Right. I better get on with this so that I can get it fixed, and then I can start thinking about the quilting, and then hopefully I will have this ready to be quilted very soon. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sort of rambling video, and if you did, please give it a like, and maybe follow the channel so that you don't miss the next video. Not sure what that will be about. Maybe it will be about this getting quilted. You never know. And I hope you have a great day, whatever you're making.